All right, so thank you everyone and welcome to Career Hack 2.0 from Helping Other People Succeed, H.O.P.S. My name is Bola. I am one of the co-founders of Helping Other People Succeed. Helping Other People Succeed is a social enterprise that helps career professionals in about 7 to 8 countries transition, stabilize, and grow their career. And some bit of career and mindset transformation. And we've got a lot of programs that run. Career Hack is one of those. And today we have our speakers. And this is the end of my job here. The moderator is Adetone, who's going to take it over from now. Adetone.
Okay, thank you very much, Bola. And hello again, and welcome to all our guests from all over the world. So we'll be having, like most of you already saw, we'll be having 4 speakers today, and each of them will hold their sessions using the style that suits them the most. But we have allocated, because we are very mindful of time, we've allocated 20 minutes to each speaker, and these 20 minutes include 5 minutes for questions and answers. So we'll get straight into it. Our first speaker today is a business analyst and project lead with the government in New York, and she'll be taking us through some interview tips for business analysts. And I'm sure like this would apply to a lot of other people in terms of job seeking. So please make welcome Asta Bajpa. You can clap or just use the clap reaction.
Hello. Oh, that's a good welcome. Thank you. I would request if you guys have any questions, keep posting in the chat window.
Which managing?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So you guys can mute yourself in between while we go ahead with the slides and the presentation. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post in the chat window so we can discuss it later. My name is Asta and welcome to the Career Hack. I hope everyone's excited for the new learning and discussion today. The reason why we initiated this session is I have a ServiceNow business analyst group, and I got in touch with Bola and Taiwo, and we were discussing about how COVID-19 has created a lot of job losses. I have been getting emails, calls from different new graduates, a lot of experienced people losing their jobs, and Bola and Taiwo encouraged that let's start something to help everyone get in track. If they are trying for any interviews, it's definitely gonna help them. That's why I think we have the session today. I hope it's helpful for everyone to land up at the specific job that you guys want for in the future. So yeah, I have been working in finance, healthcare, and a lot of different sectors. Currently, I'm working at Department of Transportation with New York City. It's exciting because we get a chance to deal with a lot of issues, public-facing issues. And as a business analyst, I come across various things that are changing every day and participate with the requirements and a lot of different things. So the way we have structured the interviews today, it would be like a real-time thing. So if anyone want to speak or have answers, unmute yourself and please let me know. I don't know what's the background for all the participants here, but I think a lot of them are business analysts or project managers. And as a business analyst, we wear a lot of hats. Sometimes we are the change managers. Sometimes we have to become the subject matter experts. Sometimes we are the report creators, trainers, system analysts, project manager, tons of things. So whenever you are going for an interview, if you're a fresh graduate or an experience, the very first thing that a lot of interviewers ask is tell about yourself. And I feel like if you fail to answer the question, tell me about yourself, your entire job interview can go down the hill. And that's not a very encouraging thought. It's like the first impression is the last impression kind of thing. And so I would encourage anyone, any volunteers, if you want to answer this question, we can take one volunteer at a time, and unmute yourself and please suggest any answer you would in an interview scenario. How would you answer this question? Any volunteers?
Well, looking at no one giving it a try, maybe I can share my thoughts. Hi, this is Sandeep, right now located in Pune, India. If you allow me, I can share my thoughts.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, thank you so much for coming
One,
forward.
Yeah, so tell me about yourself. The person wants to know about me. The way I would answer about it is, hello, my name is Sandeep Undale. I'm passionate about software product development, and I currently work in an automotive company in the capacity of software development manager. I and my team, we develop value-based software for the stakeholders and the customers who are interested in our organization's mechatronics products. That's a brief intro about what I do. On personal front, I like spending time in nature, going out for hikings, singing, and sometimes also gardening. So that's a brief about myself. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's really very good answer. And one of the reasons the interview asked them, tell me about yourself, is they do have their your resume. The 5-page resume. Why they asking you this question? They have your education, they have your experience. The reason why they're asking, one of the biggest reason is, as a BA, you have to have presentation skills, because you deal with a lot of clients whom you're presenting either the product or a solution, and they have to buy that solution. A lot of time they're not convinced, so they want to know how exactly your presentation skills are. They also want to know what are the skills that are important to you. For say business analytics, the report generation, these are something, or market research is something that's very important for me. And if the job also needs that, they would definitely mark it down. It would be in their heads that this person is quite aligned to our job requirement. So that's pretty great. I would suggest to keep it short. You don't need 20 minutes like the gentleman before suggested. It was short. He looked very enthusiastic for the position. He shared a little bit of his past experience. He also told about his recent project. That was very nice. If you highlight your skills, these are a few of the examples that you can add on. It would be great. So that's something that I would say is one of the deal breakers kind of thing, because yes. So the next question is strength and weakness. And this comes pretty commonly, and people ask about strength and weaknesses. The reason behind this question is interviewer wants to know how comfortable you are accepting your positives and negatives. And we as humans have to work in a team. And if we do a mistake, then how easier it is for us to accept our mistake and grow as a team. We cannot be running our own show. So for this question, I can take 2 volunteers, anyone coming ahead. It's a great discussion going on. I would encourage to let your thoughts come out and share with everyone.
Hi, my name is Gabriel.
Hey, Gabriel.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Speaking about my strengths and weaknesses, I would like to start with my strengths. One of my major strengths is my ability to wear multiple hats and communicate with different stakeholders and technical people at the same time. I'm also great when it comes to presentation and problem solving. The problem solving part of me takes me to one of my weaknesses, which means I like to sit on a problem or sit on a challenge until I am satisfied with the solution. In my experience, that has worked against me because I've been able to missed some deadlines, but now I've been able to learn how to delegate more as well as work with people around me to ensure that I'm able to succeed within the time and the scope allotted. Thank you.
I can go next.
That's great. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. What's your name?
My name is Neha, and
Okay.
I would just like to share my strengths and weaknesses. So my first strength, I would say, is problem solving. Like, I have a tendency of looking at a problem, and instead of panicking, I immediately start thinking about the solution of the problem, so I don't spend time stressing over any problem. And my second strength, I would say, is teamwork. Like, I work really well when I am supposed to work with a team, and I try to maintain balance within the team. And my weakness is procrastination, but I usually tend to wait until the deadline comes nearby. But I have started working on this weakness of mine. I've started looking at the videos, and I've seen a little bit of improvement in myself, and I hope that I can overcome this weakness really soon. Thank you.
That's really awesome. Thank you, both the participants, to be enthusiastic and answer these questions. I would say the strength and weakness, the interviewer knows that it can be behavioral or it can be technical. So an example of behavioral is I get bored pretty often with a particular project, or a technical can be I don't know much about the market research analysis, but they also want to know how you are overcoming these weaknesses. And sometimes your strength should reflect in the weakness. For say, I'm too helpful. That's one of the things that a lot of candidates say is one of their weaknesses, and how they're doing is they're doing more organization. They're kind of dividing the work. So it's great answers. And I think, it's really helpful to discuss that. I have listed few of the examples that you guys can use, for strength and weakness. Sometime, if you can say one of my strengths is flexibility. So you have to specify. In one of the previous projects, I was also the team lead, and also I had to do the QA, because I can give you an example. I was working with New York State Disability Office, and surprisingly, they didn't have any QA department. So we QA part 2. So we, as someone mentioned, we wear multiple hats. Definitely we do. And that's how we are. We are very flexible, because sometimes we become the trainer, sometimes we become the tester. And this is one of the strengths that we can, put on for any project and change our hats and, act at our best. So thank you so much for your answers. The next question, the reason I did not want to add this question initially, but one of my friends who's a .NET developer told me that this was a deal breaker for them. And now, because of COVID, a lot of fresh graduates, a lot of experienced people are applying. There might be 50 applicants for one position, and they might want to know, how are you standing out of crowd? What exactly is something makes you out of, other people who are in the pool, who are equally having good education and everything. So if there's any volunteers, I would more than welcome them to express their thoughts.
Hi, my name is Ola, and the reason why you should hire me specifically for this role is because I have a very strong technical background, and being a functional business analyst, I think that's very important. I also have a good match of business skills as well. Getting requirements from the business, communicating that to the development team, just basically around meeting the needs of the business, using technology to meet the needs of this business, which is something I'm very passionate about. So I think I'll be a good fit for this role.
That's wonderful. Thank you for your response. Is there anyone else want to answer this question, or we can go ahead?
Hi, my name is Ingrid. I would say the reason why you should hire me is because I have tenacity. I have a trait that is really important for business analysis, and that is the I would say that that is when you do not give up until you reach a solution on a project. And for me, that is important because it keeps the spirit of the team and it also keeps the momentum.
I like the confidence and the enthusiasm that the way you guys are participating. We truly appreciate it. So the question why a lot of time we ask this because we have to select between, for say, 5 best people. So the interview of how well be the team, you possess a combination of skills and experiences that's making you stand out of the crowd. So definitely focus on your strength that you're bringing to the table. That should be, consistent with the 4 things that that are being looked into candidates: professionalism, enthusiasm, likable, and competence. Both of the people, Ingrid and the other participant who answered this question, definitely look very enthusiastic and professional. Also, knowing a little bit of history about the company values and how you can be the best fit with your experience and the job role, how you're aligning it very well, can be also nice to stand out for. One thing that as a business analyst, we come across every single day is difficult stakeholders. I'm working with New York City government, I have to deal sometime with a very high level management, like commissioners, assistant commissioners, sometime with CTO, sometime with regular stakeholders, and everyone is different with the approach we do the requirement gathering, with the approach we present them or propose an idea, it's different. So this is one of the questions that I have seen almost in all the business analyst interviews or maybe project management too, that if you have handled a difficult stakeholder, what you can say, so, and what you did. So basically the interviewer wants to know, how was a difficult situation? So explain the situation and how you tackled it. So anyone want to answer this question?
Hi, Ebenezer here. I think one of the important things when you talk about handling and managing different stakeholders or difficult stakeholders is the fact that as a business analyst, you're trying to drive change. And of course, change is not exactly something that kind of goes well with stakeholders. But I think one of the important things here is you want to be able to get them to trust you. You want to be able to sell the value in either you're changing the process or you're changing the technology. And the most difficult one, changing the people themselves. So it has to do with a lot of, getting them to trust you, mm-hmm. and also seeing value in the process you're trying to change. I think for me, that is very critical to highlight. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, very true. I have one of the examples from my past when we were doing requirement gathering. We were a set of 6 BAs as a team. We did a wonderful job in prioritizing the requirements, everything. And then when we were ready to give the demo to the whole group of directors, one of the key stakeholders disagreed. And he said that this is one of the requirements, and he used the mind first approach. And he was like, I want this requirement to be in this phase. And thank God that we do the requirement gathering in every documentation very properly. And we showed them that this was something that has to be covered in phase 2. When he saw the sign off, he was fine. And that also showed that me or my team is very good in requirement gathering sessions. We document everything, and we are very precise in defining phase by phase requirements. So that is something that also gave us a chance to show our strengths, and also how we managed to, handle a negative or difficult situation, and how can we be an asset in very difficult situation. So to wrap up that, at the end, definitely a lot of interviewers, almost everyone, give you a chance to ask a question. The reason why they're asking you to ask any question is they definitely want to know how enthusiastic you are for this position, did you did a good market research about the company? Are you really looking to look forward for the type of work they're offering? So anyone, I welcome anyone answering this question, and then we can discuss more. Okay. I'm not seeing any response. So I would say if I have to ask any question from the interviewer at the end, I would definitely ask questions like, what is the scope of the project, or what's the duration of the project? May I know who's the end client? If selected, what is the approximate time frame for joining? Any special company policies I should know? What are the tools used by the team? What am I expected to deliver in next 3 months, or how is my couple of things that shows that you are willing to join their team, you are willing to participate and express your thoughts. So that's definitely my take on that. I want to say thank you everyone for having this little discussion, and this was really helpful. I hope you guys got some little bit of discussion and help. So this is the end of my slide. I would go back to Bola so he can let the next speaker speak. So thank you so much, guys. I appreciate the participation.
Don't come to me. Yeah, go to Adito.
Particularly like the Bola, were you saying something?
No, I said don't come to me. Go to Adito.
Oh, okay. Okay, I particularly liked the role play style that Asta used, and the fact that we get to answer those questions. So if you have any more questions for Asta, you can send it to her on chat, or you can connect to her on LinkedIn, with her on LinkedIn. Because we're mindful of time, we will quickly change gears and welcome our second speaker for today. He's an Agile coach, a facilitator, a trainer, and a speaker. Please, and he has asked us to pick up our pens and pencils and a piece of paper. So that looks like exciting times ahead. Please welcome Nawaz Butt. We can clap if you can.
Hi guys. Thanks for so my internet is actually a little iffy today, so I'm struggling to. I think earlier I don't know, I was trying to speak and I was not able. I think I was not heard, so I have some internet difficulty at my end. Okay, let me share this. Where is it? So we're going to start with a small fun exercise. That is, I wanted to start with just to actually just let us loose a little bit and maybe get our creative juices. So what we would like to do in this exercise is so it will be 3 steps. So in step 1, what we would like to do is to do we want to draw some random squiggle. So if you all have a sheet of paper and pen, so just draw some random squiggle on that sheet of paper, and I will use my paint to draw those. So you can give them any shape you like. It doesn't matter.
Done.
So if you have done this, now in step 2, what we would like to do is to pick one of those squiggle. So I will add a beak somewhere. Then I will make an eye. And then I will draw a couple of bird feet. And you can do the same with your squiggles as well. And same you can do with the other squiggles. We do not have the time to actually do all of this, so I'm just going to stay one. And then what you can do is to maybe add some details to make it a little bit of fun. So in step 3, you will be more creative, and we are running out of time, so I don't have the time to color this. But I've done this exercise with my team, so you can do all these things. Make them, give them different colors. So you can color it, or if you don't have a color, you can just add some details. So I can put like a glass, he's wearing a sunglasses, and then you call it, you label it as a bird. So you see, so what happened is in this exercise, the takeaways from this activity is that our mind is incredible when it comes to looking for patterns. So I was drawing some random squiggle. I was not thinking about what shape I'm going to draw. But then at the end of it, I was able to give it a name. I was able to give it a meaning. And I was able to actually give it some message also. So this is a good activity to start as an icebreaker in your workshops as well. I picked it from one of the training that I've been on last week, I think last weekend. It's called Squiggle Birds. So you can Google it also, and you can find some other interesting activities on the around same pattern, which is called visual thinking. And you don't need to be artistic. Actually, this is another takeaway from this activity, that you don't need to be artistic. So it's a level playing field, like, so everyone is at the same level, and then we are thinking in the same manner. So let me stop this one and take my slides. I think I have this one there. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Everyone can see?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. So this one, how much time I have, Bola, before I need to wrap it up?
You have about 15
minutes?
to 15 more minutes. Yes.
10, 15 minutes. Okay. So I'll go fast. Should not take that long. So this is on the Agile career path. So today we're going to talk about a little bit on what can we do if you want to actually segue into the Agile space. So I have come up with, I think I have only 4 slides in this presentation. So when it comes to career development, and it doesn't necessarily mean Agile, but my take is to look at it as, as not as a ladder where you can only grow one way. It has to be horizontally and vertically both. So it has to grow like a tree. That is how your career grows. So one of the discipline that I have learned in terms when I embark upon my Agile coaching journey was this technique that is commonly known in Japanese martial arts, and it is called shuhari. And it is the mental model or the mindset that actually you can apply to your career development also. So you can start at a shoe stage, which is where you actually have to follow the rules, call it an apprenticeship in a career context, and then you go to a hard stage where you actually try to break the rules and you become better at it. This is something that you can call practicing in your career. And the third one is the mastery, which is be the rule, which is called which is called Ri in Shuhari, where you actually forgotten the rule and you want to actually now become you come across as a master of the trade that you are in. And this is something that this is where you can call yourself maybe a practitioner. So that is the way you need to look at your career development. And when it comes to, let's say, talk about Agile context, so what is a shoe stage in an Agile? So in an Agile career development, the shoe stage probably is to look at adopting or reading through the Agile principles and values, and the functioning, of what those guidelines and principles are. And those probably you might be able to take some learning from your Scrum trainings or Agile trainings. So this is your shoe stage. You have some trainings now under your belt, and then you go in now in the wild and practice those, those disciplines. So that so you can work your way towards high stage, and high stage is where you are going to accumulate some experience in exercising and applying those practices and disciplines, and that would take you months or years. But then when you actually reach that stage, you can call yourself that I have arrived as a practitioner now. And this is where you try to break out of the practitioner role and try to get yourself into the re-stage, where as an agile expert you want to have now like this is where you want to look back and see and reflect upon how have you done things in the past, and what could you have done differently. So you start challenging yourself, and this is where you get into this continuous improvement mindset, where you are reflecting and then you're trying to do things differently the next time. And it is the most difficult stage in anyone's career to actually break out of that stage, which is I consider the restage, uh, because you keep on going back and forth, you keep on reflecting and you keep on improving. So because of this continuous improvement that you are trying to work towards, you are never arrive at the top. So you would always be on your journey, and that is the way I see your career growing. So you would always be on the journey, and the journey is actually to arrive at the top, and that journey goes on like as your career goes on. So just apply these principles, this technique to your career development as well as to your learning anything. Shu Hari. So I'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So who am I? I think it pretty much sums up who am I, and the information is I believe has been shared. So my personal information is on the left. You can find me on LinkedIn. Nawaz Bhatt I go with Nawaz Bhatt, and this is my contact number and my email. So this is another technique that I can introduce in today's session. This is something. So you see, when it comes to Agile is all about creativity and innovation, and then you have to stand out. And I think my fellow speaker before me was actually trying to drive that point home, that you have to stand out in the crowd. So how are you going to stand out if you keep on writing things in the same old fashion and boring people, and not coming across as someone who has that creativity hat on. So this is one technique, and I am not the one who created this technique. This is something that I have borrowed from Management 3.0, but this technique is called personal map, and it's a very good icebreaker that you can use in your trainings, in your meetings, in your workshops, to use as an icebreaker, so people actually come to know each other at some level. And you can actually play around with this technique. The way this technique works is just a visual representation of my personal world. Who am I? What have I done? Where I came from? What are my skills? What are my aspirations or ambitions? What my hobbies are? Where I got education? And and even some aspect of my family and friends. And you can play around, as I said. You don't need to necessarily go with these themes, but this is something that actually can have a very powerful message, because when it comes to Agile, we talk about self disciplined and self organized teams, and have to have a level of trust and openness in the organization. So Agile really thrives on this openness in the organization and trust. So you can only build that trust if you actually do certain activities with your teams where people open up, and then they talk about things that they're probably not comfortable with, that discussing, especially with your work peers. So this is something about me. I think everyone is able to read what my family setting and what my friends are, and and where I have worked, and where I've taken my education. And my home is in Pickering right now. That is a small city in the Greater Toronto area. So people who are local know pretty well where Pickering is. So yeah, so this is one technique you can use to actually, one of the techniques, and maybe go and explore Management 3.0. It has a really good set of experiments, techniques, practices, games that you can play with your teams. You doesn't need to be necessarily in an Agile space. You can use, like, this doesn't actually warrant or merit that you have to be an agile, organization or agile team to use this activity or this technique. So you can go and explore Management 3.0, and you will see many such techniques around there. So agile, evolution of agile. So I don't want to bore you with the what the history has been, how we actually arrived here. But long story short, we can see that there were 3 ages that the software industry actually has come to intuition. If we dial back, back in the 50s and 60s, that was the time of complex computing machines, and I think some of you might have seen it, those big gigantic boxes of computers that we used to have, and back in the day we used to call them electronic data processing. So that was the evolution, that's where we started the software development journey. And then fast forward, in the 60s, 70s and 80s, we saw the emergence of waterfall methodology and lean manufacturing. Toyota production system that was introduced by Toyota, the automaker company, was one of the discipline that was used to actually do things in a more agile, in a more iterative and and in iterative manner. Then we move to the 90s, and 90s is actually the time where this thing start picking up. So we saw some iterative software development models coming up. Some of the known ones are rapid application development or dynamic system development, and even a spiral model. I don't know if anyone has heard of those things. So that was the emergence of iterative model. And then from 1990s is where we actually saw the dot-com era also, the dot-com boom. That's what used to be called. I am actually from that time, so I'm that old. So dot-com boom was the time actually when the organization became very serious on actually looking at ways of, or different ways of approaching how they can approach software development. Because it typically in the 80s and 90s, it used to take 3 years for any application from start to finish before it gets developed. So 3 years was not acceptable during the dot-com time. So that is where they got into this iterative development, and there was extreme programming, XP, and then in 1995, Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland introduced Scrum to the world. And then that is where the agile movement actually started picking up. And 2001 is where these 17 guys came to Austin, and then they actually wrote a paper in Snowbird around Agile Manifesto for Software Development. And then we have seen an emergence of all these frameworks and agile disciplines since those times, especially around the time when we got into Web 2.0. And I think some of you know this phenomena of Web 2.0 actually is the birth of social media networking platforms like the YouTubes and the Facebooks and and the Yahoos and of the world. So you start seeing these high-tech Silicon Valley companies starting actually coming up with products, and they were trying to shorten their product cycle to the shortest possible time. So it was not like the back in the Microsoft days where we have every 3-4 years an operating system coming out from Microsoft, like 95, 98, 2000, and that the product was coming out pretty much every year. And even they start creating biannual cycles and then the quarter cycles. So that is the emergence of lean startups and MVP development. All the companies, high-tech companies like the Ubers, Airbnbs, and you name it, they all have their roots in MVPs and lean startups. And this is where the phenomenon of UI UX actually also come to life. Another space in the modern times is the Devops space, which is more around high-tech cloud computing. So you have moved from shift from your old server frameworks to a cloud computing environment. And then the third one is the all the frameworks around Scrum at scale, and there's so many around. So these are the 3 groupings that you can look into. If if you want to be successful in agile discipline. If you are, so how you can connect with these three groupings. So the way I see it, you are a good fit to transition into a UI, UX, MVP, or lean startup space if you are a BA today, or a business system analyst, or even an analyst, or business project manager. So these are the potential candidates who can transition well into this space. The DevOps, the cloud computing is good fit for techies, DBAs, developers, or system integrators, or even network administrators, or security guys. So if you have this type of background, you probably can look into DevOps and cloud computing. And if you are want to focus on frameworks, then you are someone who's coming from project, portfolio, program management, even product management. So these are the people who could be a good fit for this type of in this space. So now career development in agile, and it's a long road, but I think to keep it short, you need to actually ask yourself 5 questions. So first question is, where are you now? And this is where actually our biases start kicking in. And I've been really actively working with my teams around cognitive biases. I just did one yesterday around affinity biases, which is around circle of trust. I don't know how many of you have seen this exercise. So we do have biases because we human beings are actually are built in that manner. We are fault. We have this fault, defect in us, the way we actually think and the way we look at things. So one of the bias we have is, in psychology, it is called as Dunning-Kruger bias, or Dunning-Kruger effect, and that is the bias actually which tells you that you actually have the ability to do something better than what you can actually do. So you are rating yourself higher than where you are in that terms of that ability. And the classical example is our driving habits. Like all of us, actually, if I survey, everyone is going to say I'm the best driver out there. But are we? Because the proof is in the pudding. So that is typically called another bias, which is in the cognitive space is considered as Dunning-Kruger effect. So where are you now? So that is something you need to ask, and you have to ask honest opinion of yourself, self-assessment. Where are you now professionally at this moment, and where you want to go? So that is your first question, where you want to go. Where are you, where you want to go? And now once you answer these two, you need to ask yourself second one, what job would you like? So where you want to go, what is your current role, and what is your target role? What target role you are pursuing? And this is where something you need to do maybe some kind of market research to see. And I just spoke to some of the potential areas in agile career development that you can try to see where you fit in. But this is something, it could be something very basic like a Scrum Master, let's say, or it could be a leap towards agile coaching. But again, I think you need to be just realistic and pragmatic on exactly where can you go, and that is something that I'm going to touch upon slightly on question number 5. The third one is, do you have the required skills? So if you want to go somewhere and you already have a target in mind, do you actually have the professional knowledge and education of the desired target role? So this is where, so let's take the same example as the Scrum Master. If you want to be a Scrum Master, that is your role, that is your destination role in an agile space. So are you well versed in Scrum guide, or agile principles, or agile manifesto? Have you read online publications? Are you following any agile leaders, or have you actually attending such meetups, podcast, or are you subscribed to the YouTube channels? So much content out there. So what are you doing about it? And or are you a member of any professional groups? So or groups where the Scrum Masters come and talk about it. So these are the things that you need to look at and see exactly how you're going to build that required skill, and where are you in terms of building that. The fourth one is, once you actually have the required skills, or at least some aspects of those required skills, are they showing up on your resume? So the skills and the experience need to show up. So that is something that you need to take some professional help. So you might want to maybe take an advice from someone who actually has dealt with recruitment, or maybe who is in the capacity of hiring manager. And I could be one of those people, but look out, in your network, the people who you are connected with on LinkedIn, let's say, have you, and one tip could be like, you may have a, you know, friendly recruiter you may have dealt with in the past, so that's someone who actually has helped you to get you a job in the past. So maybe reach out to those people first. So that is the way you can actually build your resume to make you stand out and reflect on exactly what you have to offer to the organization. And the fifth and the most important one is, and that actually again somehow relates to point 1 and 2, is the goal too far? And I said, like the Dunning-Kruger effect, like don't be a biased, you know, opinion about you. You know yourself the best. So just have an honest opinion, exactly where are you and where you want to go. And is it a too big a leap? Let's say you are, let's say, a developer today and you want to be an agile coach. So is it a too big a leap for you? Like I'm not a big proponent of actually having these layers in your career, but just be realistic. Ambitious is good, but be realistic also. Is the market going to, you know, let you come in that role? Are you that good? If you are that good, then go and do it. But if you think that you need to take some steps, then make a career progression steps, like create a path, exactly what steps you need to do. And this is something I think I have used myself, like what are the pluses and what are the deltas. So what pluses I need to do more and more, and what are the deltas I need to do less and less. So go away from less and less and do more and more of something that is going to take you there. So some of the questions you can ask on your career path journey or career transition journey is, as I said, like where are you or what you want to be. You ask yourself what is your reach goal, like, you know, the leap. And like just you know, like look at the situation objectively. So and then see exactly, you know, what how can you, like, sometime actually it is very obvious, you know, the market is talking to you. Let's say if you've been trying to actually make that leap and you've been turned down so many times. Let's say, I don't know, like you maybe targeting a role, and then you've been applying for some time now for that role, and you are actually always been bouncing back because you're not getting any traction on those roles. So maybe the market is already talking to you, so it is a too big a leap maybe for you. So just try to use the Shuhari model, as I talked about. You know, maybe you are in an apprenticeship now, you are not practicing, or at least the market sees you this way. So look at, you know, self-reflection is the key. So ask yourself these difficult questions and then see, is it a too big a leap for me? And then maybe I have to make those baby steps, take those baby steps to arrive to where I want to go. But stay motivated, stay ambitious, stay focused, and the last and the most important is stay agile. That's it. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you very much, Nawaz. Thank you for sharing the Shuhari model. I'd never heard that before. Well, that was something good to learn. Even though we're like sort of trying to keep to time, I sort of feel like people might have some questions. So I'm thinking maybe we can take just one question and Nawaz answers. Does anybody have any question they would like Nawaz to answer before we move on? Okay. So that means like everybody on the everybody is good on that end. Okay, thank you very much again. What?
So just a quick question for him.
Okay.
So when he was, the last slide when he talked about where are you now, what job would you like? So as a business analyst, now forward looking, what job would, if you had to answer that kind of question, what job would you like? Or something like that, something along those lines. It's almost like forward looking in a few years' time, what kind of role would you like to see yourself in? So if you can shed more light on that, because some business analysts transition to maybe COO or CCOs or something like that. So you can shed more light on it.
No,
yeah, sure. So I unfortunately I don't have the journey line in front in handy right now. So I have used that journey line as an icebreaker. So when I go and work with my teams, I usually take them through my journey. And that is another exercise you can do, journey line. So just Google it, journey line, and then actually it is nothing but just what I shared in the Shuhari you know, model. So you actually talks about some of the highlights of your career exactly how you started and where you came from and where are you now and where you want to go. So if you look at my journey line, I actually was at one point in time a BA. I was a business analyst at one point in time in my career. So I also have transition. So you can actually, it is not impossible to go where you want to go. Nothing can stop you. Nothing in the world can stop you what you want to be. So don't even think or limit, your options. But as I said, be realistic. I did not arrive to an agile coach where I am right now from the BA. So I transition slowly and, I make those subtle moves in my career. Sometimes you need to maybe take some risk also. I have taken a couple of, in my career path, a couple of risks, opportunities. But yeah, you have to take, those steps, baby steps to see exactly where you want to go. So first thing is to actually try to connect to the community. So where you want to go in the community you want to work in, you need to build some bridges. So build some network. So become part of those communities. Meetup groups are a good point. Now everything is virtual. So start from there. Try to come to those meetup groups and then try to connect with these people over LinkedIn and then, try to pick their brain and then see exactly people who probably know you well, or maybe at least look at your profile, maybe able to suggest exactly, okay, is it something that you can work with? Naturally, the BAs usually transition into the product space, as I have seen. At one point in time, I was a product owner also in one of the local organizations here in the city of Toronto. So you can transition into a product owner even. But yeah, apprenticeship, practice, and mastery. Just remember this theme. So work your way up, and that is how you're going to grow yourself from wherever you want to go from BA. I hope I answered your question.
I believe you did. If I can answer one of you. Okay, thank you very, very much, Nawaz. Because of our time, we won't take any questions.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, because of time, we won't take any more questions at this point. If at the end of the session, some of us can stay back to ask those questions, but we are mindful of the time for everyone. So
I can stay back for another 10-15 minutes. It's okay. If anyone has questions, I'm more than happy to answer later on.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's great news. Thank you very much for that, Nawaz. So if you have any more questions, you can stay back after we officially end this, and then we can get answers to those. So I would quickly invite our next speaker. She has over 10 years experience in business analysis, and she's very passionate about the BA community. She's going to be giving us some tips on business analysis from the tools and techniques lens. Please, if you can clap. Make welcome Tendai Chakabuda.
I like the clapping part. Hi, guys. Thanks so much. I can see people already using my tool. I like it. Thank you so much, guys. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to see all of these tools and techniques that you're entering here. Wow. I think, I wanted to really utilize this tool to show you guys, you see how many tools and techniques there are for business analysts. I think, is everyone there on the site? I can see, I've given people 5 options to go and enter your tools and techniques. So I can see Jira, Confluence, interviews, business requirements. And guys, when I think of business analysis tools and techniques, I really think of a real ocean. There is so many tools, there's so many techniques out there relating to business analysts. And the questions that come about is how do I use these tools? When do I use these tools? In what instances do I use these tools? So I think as business analysts, one thing I really want to come out of my presentation today is to equip you guys in your daily work to see how you can apply these tools and techniques. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I just wanted to really visualize it to see, how many tools and techniques that there are. I'm going to start sharing my presentation. Thank you so much, Aditun, for the introduction. My name is Tendai. I'm a mentor, I'm a coach, I'm an advisor for business analysts. I'm a certified business analyst professional as well. I hold quite a number of qualifications, and currently I'm employed here in Canada at GS1 Canada. I've actually transitioned into a product owner role. So rightly said, like what Nawaz said, is most BAs are transitioning into product owner roles. Please feel free to stop me if you guys have got any questions. So I've put the slide here really to say, so here we've got Dr. A, and we've got Michael, the business analyst. I like to call him Michael, the business analyst, you know. So they're two completely unrelated professionals. But guys, trust me, what we do as business analysts and what doctors do is exactly the same. And I want you guys to actually remember this analogy going forward in your careers. So basically with a doctor, a patient goes to a doctor with certain symptoms. The patient only knows the symptoms and wants the doctor to treat them. So just imagine you go, you're sick, there's something wrong with you, you go to the doctor and you say, you know what, I've got a fever, I've got a runny nose, please help me. So the doctor won't just treat the symptoms immediately. They need to understand the underlying issues or the causes. You know, they need to go deep and see what is this person suffering from? What is actually causing your symptoms? So they need to probe you as a patient to understand the root causes, right? In probing you, they are using certain tools and techniques that they've used from their career or from their experience to try and understand the underlying causes and give you, the patient, a proper diagnosis. So they use tools, techniques, and any other methods that, you know, that they can do to try and find out what is wrong with you as the patient. So ultimately, the doctor wants to treat the problem, not the system, not the symptom. I think a lot of us don't want to go back to the doctor, so you want them to actually treat the root cause of the problem. So you might be asking yourself, but Tindai, how does that relate to business analysis? What is the commonality? Guys, as business analysts, most of us are hired or called to organizations to solve business problems or challenges. When we're called to, you know, on projects or businesses, it's ultimately there's a need, there's an opportunity, or there's ultimately something to solve as a business analyst. So we need to apply certain tools and techniques as well in order to understand the root cause of those problems. So, you know, when you enter organizations, and let's say you go into an organization, they say, you know what, we need to fix this department. There's something wrong with the department, and they tell you a whole list of issues. As a business analyst, you're doing the profession as well as your self-discredit if you just really go and just listen to what they say and try and implement a solution aligned to what, you know, what people are telling you without really having done your homework. This is where it's critical as a business analyst to always make sure that the tools, the techniques, you know, that you have are relevant. They shape whatever solution you'll ultimately propose to your stakeholders. So I really believe that the whole business analysis tools and techniques is one area that is really overlooked, in that a lot of people think that because I know, you saw all of those lists of tools and techniques that came out on Menti when you guys shared, because I know how to do a process flow diagram, because I know how to do this, I know my tools and techniques. But that is really besides the point. I think the crux of what we do as business analysts is learning to apply those tools and techniques in a way that will enable you to reach, you know, a certain solution. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, this triangle. This is literally called Bloom's taxonomy. It's used a lot in the academic arena to determine, you know, how students or individuals think, learn, and ultimately understand and apply certain principles. So I really looked at this and I said, you know what, let me bring it into my presentation, because I think this really represents how we as BAs are supposed to have a look at our toolkit. You know, I always use the analogy of you're a business analyst, you're wearing your your doctor's coat, you've got a briefcase that is filled with your tools and techniques. So what is important is understanding how to apply those tools and techniques. So the first thing at the base of everything is remembering. It's recalling the facts and the basic concepts. This is things we've been taught in university, your work experience, you know, remembering the tools and techniques that are there inside your specific briefcase. The second layer of this is understanding. So understanding the aims of the tools and techniques, understanding where those tools and techniques fit in the BA lifecycle. Guys, you know what? I've been to a lot of organizations where, you know, especially those organizations which are still practicing waterfall or software development lifecycle. You pick up a business requirements document. To illustrate one requirement, a BA is using a functional diagram. They're using a process flow. I think sometimes while we know the value of these tools and techniques, you need to understand at what point to stop and what point to start. Where do they start and when they end? So I think what I'm trying to drive home across is that because you've got a multitude of business analysis and tools and techniques, Don't think that applying all of those tools and techniques into a specific project, for example, into one requirement is going to make your case or your solution stronger. You need to know the right tool to apply at the right time. The third layer is applying. So basically, speaking to what I've just said, applying the tools in the right situation and the right time. Guys, once you've applied your tool, right? Let's say it's a process flow diagram. You've modeled the process. You're not just going to hand over the process to your stakeholders and say, you know what, I've done. You've asked me to, for example, analyze the current state. Here you go. It doesn't stop. After applying, you need to analyze the results. So again, I'll bring in the analogy of a doctor. If you go to a doctor and they do an X-ray, for example, they're not just going to hand over the X-ray and say, oh, Bola, here you are. Here you are. This is what I found. He needs to analyze the data and say, Bola, is it a fracture? Is it a sprain? Have you broken your leg or whatever it may be? Similarly, as business analysts, use your tool, but don't let it stop there. Analyze the data, draw connection, draw themes, try and really see what is going on in the business. Once you've done that, you need to evaluate. What does evaluate mean? You need to come to a stand or a decision. You need to say, guys, based on all of this inferences, this is what I can see that is happening with this specific, scenario or whatever phenomena you've been told to investigate or understand the root cause. And at the top layer is create. I think of create as solutions for us as business analysts. That create is finally recommending a solution. But can you see, guys, to get to the solution, you would have gone through a rigorous process. I really like the word rigorous because back in my academic days, I used to hear a lot of things to say, guys, before you recommend a solution, make sure you can justify the process that you got to the solution. And as business analysts, I think that's critical. You need to see what tools you've used, the analysis method you've done, the evaluation that you've done, and finally the solution, because that is what builds credibility as a business analyst. So this really is how you go about developing your BA toolkit. Right. So this, I think a lot of us have seen, especially those of us who've engaged with BA BOK. This really represents the life cycle of business and really represents the domains in which us as business move throughout, throughout our daily lives as we work as business analysts. So basically, in each of these core areas, there's several tools, techniques that we use to diagnose and analyze business problems. I think within elicitation and collaboration, if we can start there, that's literally you going out to elicit requirements from business analysts. There's a lot of tools you can use there. There's interviews, there's workshops, there's brainstorming, there's surveys or questionnaires. Strategy analysis, that's basically trying to understand where an organization is, where it wants to go, and trying to bridge that gap. Again, business case, SWOT analysis, balanced scorecard, and many more. I think most of you guys who've seen the BA BOK, there's an entire section just dedicated to tools and techniques, explaining what they are, explaining how to use them. Business analysis planning really relates to how you as a business analyst work. It really relates to how you as a business analyst organizes your material to really produce the end result that is solid. I think personally, this is an area that's kind of like overlooked. The whole planning, organizing, and coordinating. And even in my 10 years of experience as a business analyst, it's something that I force myself to do because it lays a foundation in terms of how you're going to carry out whatever scenario or problem or opportunity that you're trying to investigate go forward. Requirements analysis and design definition is really the crux of what we do as business analysts. This is really when you analyze, you model, you specify requirements, you try to find, the various themes between different requirements, and various tools as well can be used here. Root cause analysis, use cases, data flow diagrams, process modeling. Requirements lifecycle management is really talking about traceability, really about how you can trace your requirement from the time that you get the requirement right through to implementation, which is a critical thing for a business analyst to realize benefits at the end of the solution. And finally, solution evaluation is basically assessing the solution's performance to see whether it's actually delivered what it was meant to deliver. So I've really just put down one question here because I want to use that earlier triangle that I showed you as a way into, how you would answer this kind of question. So, this question is you've just joined a new organization and have been tasked to understand the current state of a particular department of that organization. Explain the tools and techniques you would use to understand the current state. You know, you get this question. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to attempt to answer. I know we're short on time. So what I'm going to do is, I think, let me just speak through the thought process. I do welcome any comments or any questions as I speak through it. So basically, again, going back to that thought process. So they ask you this question, you go to an interview, they're saying, please explain how you would go about analyzing the current state. So again, in your mind, you know you've got your briefcase. You know your briefcase has got several tools and techniques that you need to apply. The first thing is understanding where exactly those tools and techniques lie. And in this case, they're asking you to understand how would you go about understanding the current state? So you would automatically think, right, the current state translates to strategy analysis in the BA life cycle. So that's the whole understanding thing. You're trying to understand where, where I can actually get those tools from. In this instance, they're speaking about the strategy analysis. Then you'll go and talk about how you would apply that tool. So basically, applying the tool, I think very important, guys, as well, that I didn't mention before, that it's situation dependent, it's context dependent. It depends on the organization. It depends on the stakeholders. It depends on quite a lot of things that are happening within the organization. So for example, one of the things for understanding current state would be to, use the balanced scorecard, for example, but maybe you're going to an organization which is not really transparent about their financial position or finances and so forth. Or maybe, as a project, there's some instances in which some project management offices are only handed down, the finances and so forth. So really it depends what kind of tool that you'll use will depend on the organization as a whole. Once you've done that, then you'll go again, like I said, you would speak about that specific tool, understanding the current state. For example, I'm going to go and interview my stakeholders to find out, the people, to find out what's going on. Understanding current state, I'm going to look at processes. So, it's a combination of people, processes, and technology. I'm going to see what's happening with the people. I'm going to see what's happening with the processes. I'm going to see what's happening with the technology. Analyzing and drawing the inferences based on the technique that you would have selected. Then you're going to evaluate, i.e. justify or take a stand or decision. Then you're going to come up with a solution or whatever it may be in this instance, which is understanding the current state. I see a lot of chats and I don't want that to go unnoticed. So let me just quickly see chats. Okay, right. Let's go on to the next thing. I'm just going to close the chat. This is an interesting one. Do tools and techniques change depending on project methodology, Agile versus Sdlc? So guys, your toolkit will always remain your toolkit. It never changes. Always keep, whether you are in Agile, whether you are in Sdlc. Let's think about the current environment right now, like with the doctors right now, with the COVID situation that we're in. Does their toolkit change? Not really, it doesn't change. But what it highlights is that as doctors, you need to keep abreast of what's going on in the industry. Similarly, as business analysts, you need to keep abreast of what is Agile. Don't get stuck in your ways. Keep abreast of, what is Agile? How does it impact my tools and techniques? You can adapt them as and when you go, So I think tools and techniques don't change. I think you as a business analyst, they'll always remain there. It's how you apply those tools and techniques in the various methodologies that you find yourself in, okay? Final tips. I really wanted to bring this home because I think this is so important. Guys, your tools and techniques can become stale if you don't refresh. As business analysts, it's so important that we keep a pulse of what's going on outside of our organization. I know sometimes we're so consumed with projects, with releases, with deadlines, your head is down. But you know what, at the end of the day, the person who will suffer is your career. Because when you look at, wow, there's AI, there's robotics, there's a whole lot of things that is happening out there, data analysis, and you're like, my God, I've been working for 10 years as a BA, I've really, X, Y, and Z. So really, you need to adopt a growth mindset because that growth mindset is going to help shape your tools and techniques. Like I said, guys, I'm sure you've been in organizations where there has been old furniture in an organization for a long time. You see their business requirements document. That person always has a process flow. They've always got a use case. It's the traditional thing. you know, which is okay to a certain extent. But you know what? I think that limits yourself as an individual. Going to my next step, which is embracing agility. When you guys think of a cheetah, what do you think of? It's agile, it moves, you know, it's so fast. And we as individual business analysts, guys, there's never a time right now, if you're not agile, it's going to be very challenging for you as a business analyst. Look, right now as it stands, we're engaging over Zoom. The Mentimeter technique is something that I've been working for 10 years, but I only learned it in the past 3-4 months because of the COVID situation. I was forced to learn a new tool, this Mentimeter tool, to be able to engage my audience when I'm, you know, eliciting requirements in my company. So, you know, having to be agile. Yes, I'm a senior BA. Yes, I've done a lot, but having to learn something new speaks to agility. So regardless of where you are in your profession, always be agile and always be able to learn new things. And I'm sure most of us have seen this analogy of a tree with roots. Speaks to the very thing that I said at the beginning. Guys, seek to understand the root cause of a problem, right? Again, always make sure that you're using tools that at the end of the day give you the most value for what you need. Don't use a tool to impress the reader or to make your BRS 10 pages or to make your user story diagram or your user story to look fancy. You know, at the end of the day, use something that is of value to your project team, to your stakeholders, and ultimately to the organization. And my final tip is really, in addition to these tools and techniques, guys, to apply these tools and techniques, it's just not enough knowing it. Maybe I should actually add another layer to this triangle. The application of the tools and techniques depends on you as an individual. How do you interact with stakeholders? This is where soft skills comes in. I saw on Nawaz's presentation, which I really liked, emotional intelligence, the ability to know where you are with your stakeholders and apply these tools. This is so important. So soft skills, again, something that is overlooked, but in order to apply those things that are in your briefcase, if you don't have the soft skills, you're going to find it very challenging. So really sharpen your soft skills and really go out there to apply your tool set. I think just to round off, guys, always begin with the end in mind. Use the tool that will yield the best result you're looking for. Begin with the end in mind. What do these guys want to do? They want me to understand the current state. Look at your toolkit, open your suitcase, open your briefcase. Don't, you know, try something you've never tried before. Guys, don't just lean onto that, you know, that process. I keep on saying process flow and use case. Try, I don't know, try if it's strategy, try the most technique, try something else other than SWOT. You know, practice makes perfect. Move from understanding application to evaluation. And situation dependent, no one size fits all approach. Another thing, guys, I firmly believe, yes, it's about breadth in terms of understanding the tools, you know, depth in terms of understanding the tools and techniques to a certain stage, but it's also about breadth. A strong business analyst has got a whole set of tools available to their disposal, and they can pick and choose as they like. I hope my presentation was really inspiring. I'm passionate about this topic, so really anyone who wants to reach out to me, please feel free. I'm open to questions, I'm open to anything, but really guys, sharpen your saw. Do not find yourself sitting in an organization without having improved your skills, your tools, your technique. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tendai. That was amazing. We could actually feel the passion from where we are all seated. We could like tell. It was intriguing as well. Thank you very much. If you have any questions for Tendai, we won't be taking them now. We can like probably take them later, or you can connect with Tendai on LinkedIn as well. Thank you very, very much. And thank you guys for hanging out with us, for sticking through the session. And I love all the interaction that we have going on there on the chat box as well. So great job. So finally, we are getting to the end of this session today. We'll be inviting the very last person that will be speaking, and is a PMI Future 50 honoree who describes himself as a project management enthusiast. Please welcome, and you know the drill by now, clap if you can. Please welcome Taiwo Abraham.
That was a great presentation from the speakers so far. And I think Tendai did a very fantastic job of adding some bit of inspiration to our presentation. I totally appreciate that. So when you're lined up to be the fourth speaker behind three great speakers, there's some kind of pressure, right? I also spoken around business analysis, job interviews, agile stuff. But here I will be talking about project management tools and techniques. And I need to share my screen. I almost forgot that I need to do that. Quick one. Sharing option. So it's going to be some kind of question and answer kind of session that we are going to have. I'm looking for my slide. Oh, interesting. Okay, found it. Okay. Do you see my screen now?
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, so we're going to be having a sort of question and answer kind of session. I posted a code for menti.com there where you would be able to provide answers to some of the questions, and we all see together. But we first go through the slide as quickly as possible to get down to the scenario we're going to be looking at. So you may look at the question there on menti.com and you think it's not complete, but you will get a better context here before we go in there. So before I jump into the conversation around tools and techniques, one thing that I always try to establish is that project management is not a robot kind of job where you have predetermined kind of situation and predetermined kind of solution to problems you would find on projects. Each project will always require its own unique solution, and so there is never a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. There is always a need to think. That's one of the reasons project management skill is one of the skill set that will still remain for the foreseeable future in the world of artificial intelligence and automation. Because almost every problem you're going to find in project management requires some level of dynamic kind of intelligence. And so every situation will require you thinking about the context of the situation before you determine what tool will be applicable. And we're going to see that as we go into some of the scenarios that we're going to be looking at today, when you will see different people coming up with different kind of ideas, whereby there is really not a wrong or right answers. It will always depend on what is your justification for what tool that you're selecting per time. So each organization is unique, and so every project, hence utilizing PM tools and techniques that suit the uniqueness of the project is key. So here is the case that I want us to quickly look at. And if you can screenshot this, you can screenshot it, or just find a way to keep memory of what the case looks like, because all the questions we're going to be looking at will be stemming from this question. So in February 2020, just before we knew about COVID, you were contracted by Canada Health as the project manager for an initiative to develop a software that centralizes all infectious diseases related health records in every hospital across Canada. That sounds like a multi-stakeholder kind of project that will probably require a lot of communication, you think. So you will lead a cross-functional team of 20 persons, doctors, software engineers, software testers, data scientists, network engineers, cybersecurity pros, business analysts, and you need to have a legal practitioner on your team. So everything looked good. We were preparing for a kickoff, and suddenly COVID-19 struck, and there was going to be a shutdown. And just before the planned kickoff in March, the client decided that despite the pandemic situation or lockdown, the project will still have to go on as planned. Okay, so we started this project thinking, okay, we have this team that we will assemble and we will be able to run a normal traditional style kind of project where people probably work in person, face-to-face kind of interaction. And suddenly we got a new situation that makes everyone to have to work remotely. So if you think about this kind of scenario and you put on your project management hat, the question that should be next is, so what will be, what is your biggest success determinant of the project that has just been impacted? That's a question on its own that requires some critical thinking, and that has just been impacted by COVID situation, and what tools would you leverage to mitigate that challenge? So if you go to dementi.com, you will see the question there. That would help us all to be able to see what responses that others are providing. Okay. Okay, so the responses are coming in. Someone said ability for the team to communicate and co-locate as required, ability to adapt to the situation and new software easily. Someone said what software testing, using physical interaction with systems, simulators, mitigation. Okay, that person's already providing a mitigation strategy. Okay, so someone say ability to adapt to the changing situation. So you can keep it coming, but in interest of time, I will probably just go with the first person that already put in something there. So we understand that more than 90% of the time, the project manager is communicating, and for how heavily dependent on communication our projects are, I would think that a situation like COVID that immediately removes the in-person kind of interaction that is possible on a project, communication will probably be one of the most heavily impacted success factor on the project. I'm seeing a raised hand. Remy, go ahead. You might be on mute. Okay, I'll go on. If you figure out the audio, you can speak up, Remy.
Go on.
Okay, so so I would think communication is one of the most impacted success factors that you have on the project. So if we think about everything else bordering around communication, someone mentioned ability to collaborate and be transparent on task. So if you think about collaboration, it's still coming back to communication. Someone said ability to collaborate online without being in the same physical space. Communication would be the biggest, effective communication and co-location. So it looks like everybody understands that in that kind of scenario, communication is your biggest challenge. So this is where we start to talk about what tools will you then begin to contemplate to mitigate some of the challenges that we have identified around communication. So I would like to see what you all have. Okay, so for those that are probably in workspace and have had to deal with working remotely in recent time, you will agree with me that some of these online communication tools have become one of our go-to tools every day. Like I literally wake up on Microsoft Teams and sleep on Microsoft Teams. So now some of the tools that you will find most useful will be tools that combine, that are robust enough to let you organize the work that you do, communicate with the team you work with, and track the progression of the work that you do. And so there are so many of those kind of tools out there today that help you to be able to do all of that. In order to drive more explanation of this thing that we're talking about, more than I can do within 20 minutes allotted time, I did some kind of online search and provided these links that if you have time outside of this webinar to go through each of these, you would find a lot of industry information regarding some of the things that we've just talked about. So talk about what is most important to your project at that stage. I have communication here, and then of course collaboration is all that we're thinking about when we talk about communication. Another thing you'll probably find very important in that kind of scenario is your team motivation, because when you're available and you see each other in person, it's very easy to pick up moods and emotions. But in a situation where you're working remotely, it's very easy as well to lose touch with one another. And so you want to also pay attention to motivation. You want to find different tools that can help you to stay engaged and stay in touch with your team members in a way that that drive motivation. And of course, scheduling is also very important. You have a project that has a timeline, and you have people working from their respective homes, and there is no one keeping anybody to the task. You wouldn't know if someone is doing the work they should be doing, or they're out in their backyard playing with their dog or something. So you also need to find a more granular way of managing your schedule to ensure that the project is on course. So if you have time to look at some of these links, you would find very useful information there. But to be specific, I will say that some of the tools you may want to consider in this kind of scenario would be sort tools like Trello, like Microsoft Teams, like Kanban Flow. There are so many of them. If you just go online and type project management collaboration tools, you would find some of these tools. And many of them today are what you can do with a free version of some of them would get you doing a lot already. Then if you feel that the tool has really helped your productivity, you can go ahead and invest a little into that. The recent tool that my organization has just adopted is Sdlc. I find it to be like the leading technology out there for collaboration. We went on for like 2 years researching all the tools out there: Check Smartsheet, Monday.com, Rag, Dell Tech Vision. We did all of that kind of search, and we ended up finding Sdlc as the most robust, most flexible, and maybe about the most affordable of them as well. It's not marketed in any of the mainstream media. Probably one of the reasons it's still as affordable as it is. But if you have time, check out Sdlc. This is not a paid ad. It's just a user, a happy customer that is just talking about a tool. Of course, all those ones that I've just mentioned, they are all paid tools. So it's your choice to see what works for you as an individual or as a project team within your organization. Okay, so if we're moving on, the next scenario here is an update to initial plan that we have on the project. So with the pandemic declared by the WHO, Health Canada demanded that the project schedule, irrespective of the physical distance that you are already dealing with, has to be compressed, and they are willing to up the budget. But you will have to justify the need for additional budget. And so that takes us to the next question, which you would find on menti.com, and I will switch over there to see what you guys think. Okay. So using the same code, you should find the question that I have just shown you, and then I would like to see what you think. Should I expect responses? Okay. Adeton, can you confirm to me that you see my screen and that the, okay, I see some things popping in now.
Confirmed.
Okay, so yeah, so the question that, okay, is schedule compression possible? Do you want to crash? Do you want to fast track? There's actually a third option that I did not mention. Do you want to descope? And what tools come to mind? So someone said fast tracking is the best route. Someone said fast tracking, more resources needed to split workload. Speaking from a business analyst lens, I will ask, what impact will schedule compression have? I don't like this business analyst, trust me. Like they give me headache at work. Like just see that kind of comment, and that is exactly what you will get from a business analyst. Okay, we'll come back to that. Is schedule compression possible? I believe no, because of the pandemic. We are complicating the situation by compressing the schedule. I hope you're not one of those business analysts too. Crashing by bringing in more resources. Okay. Crashing activities by allocating more resources, hence budgets will pay for the resources. Okay. Yeah, so some good thinking going on there. So I would like to ask the fellow that said fast tracking is the best route to probably speak up and share their idea why they think fast tracking is the best route. Yeah, I'm waiting. Or anybody else that just feel, yeah, fast tracking is the best idea. Fast tracking, executing activities on critical path concurrently. Okay. I see the same color, so I guess the person does not want to speak, and they would rather just text. Okay, yeah, well, yeah, so yeah, it's when you wear your PM cap, it's very easy for you to quickly jump in and say, oh yeah, let's fast track, let's crash, or let's look at the scope. But I have learned over the course of the years that you may not like this business analyst the way they think, but some of the questions they ask actually help you to be very granular in your planning and in how thoughtful you are about what you do. So if you bring to mind the 6 competing constraints of project management, the reason why we call those 6 competing constraints is because when you touch one of them, you need to think about the impact on the rest 5 of them. And so those 6 would be schedule, budget, cost, risk, resources, and quality. And so before you go ahead and say, okay, schedule compression is possible, think about the impact on cost. The client has only offered to up the budget. And so you probably have 2 of the 6 competing constraints addressed already. But what happens to resources? Do you have abundance of resources? Are you able to access more resources even if they're going to be paid for? Do you think about the risk that you now have having multiple activities going on at the same time and in a situation of fast tracking? Or another question to ask is, the current schedule as planned out, do you have a lot of discretionary dependencies that you can start to to change into a fast track kind of model. Where you have mandatory dependencies, there's nothing you can do about that as far as fast tracking is concerned. Maybe then you can consider crashing. So in a crashing kind of scenario, you're not necessarily trying to make activities happen in parallel. You're now just trying to load more resources on each of the tasks and trying to get them done faster than they will be done. But there's also a limitation there that could make crashing impossible. If you have situation where activities are non-effort driven, so no matter how much resources you provide or you load on those tasks, you really cannot reduce the duration. So think about some very extreme situation where you have mandatory dependencies and you have non-effort driven tasks. So jumping on the call with your client to say, yeah, compression is possible. We'll be providing you with more details at a later time, might just be goofing as a project manager. So you want to look at the specifics of your project, the context of your project, for you to be able to decide if compression is actually possible. Only after you've done this extent of homework should you be jumping on the call with your client and saying compression is possible. And of course, the moment you offer that compression is possible, the next question would be, how do we determine where compression is possible and where it is not possible? And some of the tools you want to rely on doing that would be your Gantt chart. So if you look at your project schedule, you look at the Gantt chart, and you probably do some kind of formatting of your Gantt chart to see your critical part. It probably helps you to identify what part on your project you will be able to achieve some time saving. And then that also can spill into conversation around the budget. So let me see if there's anything else here that I'm missing. As a PM, it's our responsibility to assess the project feasibility within the given constraint, which in this case is schedule compression. If yes, I will go with crashing. Fast tracking leads to higher cost, lower quality, higher risk, scope. Yeah, so you see how this response covers more of those competing constraints. So as a rule of thumb, one of the things that I do as my thinking template on the project is when there is any conversation going on that impacts any aspect of my project, I'm thinking quality, risk, resources, scope, cost, schedule. And before I question each of those, I'm having more questions to ask than someone who just thinks, oh yeah, I'm insisting on the schedule. I'm willing to give you more money. That's fine, just get it done. Okay, so sometimes if you know that you can really get lost into the day-to-day operations of the project, you can have people designated on your team, which I do sometimes, to have someone primarily responsible for every quality contemplations on the project. I have someone thinking risk primarily, I have someone thinking schedule primarily, such that even when I get carried away, because of the primary ownership of these various constraints, someone is able to think at a more granular level and come up with specific facts of the project that can be helpful with decision making. But it depends on the size of your team. I'll be interested to see more and more of the of ideas that you guys have, so you can continue to drop more stuff there. I'm also going to give you another code for Menti.com. It's 551506. That's where we'll get to answer the last two questions that we have. Okay, I posted it in the chat. And then I'm going to switch over to the slide. Okay, so so we just asked if schedule compression is possible, and we said, is it crashing? Is it fast tracking? Do we have to descope? And we talked about some tools. I also have links here for you if you are interested in reading more and getting more in depth into some of these, some of the mindset that you need to cultivate I would advise that you read some of the papers that I have here. So yeah, crashing scheduling, and of course there's a lot of communication that happen here. So the reason I added communication as one of the things you may want to turn to in a situation where you need to compress schedule is that I have realized in my experience that more often than not, the possibility of just any difficulty or any challenge you have on the project lies with the people that you're working with. And so the first thing you want to achieve with your team is to give them a sense of the mission is possible. If you don't have that, everything else you do will almost be sabotaged by the cynicism of those that you have on the team. So the first place to start is to communicate in a very clear manner and in a very to inspire the team that this is possible, and to be very clear about some of the reasons why you think that is possible. One of the basic rules of motivation is having people believe that what they're doing is special or is noble in some form. Like the only difference between waking up and going to work every day and feeling so tired and grumpy about it, and maybe volunteering for some social cause somewhere where you spend your whole weekend without even feeling any sense of being burned out, is just what emotions you associate with the two different tasks. At work, you feel like, oh, I'm just doing this to pay my bill, life sucks. And then when you do this voluntary work where you help other people, or you do some kind of things that really, really you find deeply passionate, you're deeply passionate about, time goes so fast without you even thinking that you've done anything. And so what you want to, the environment or the atmosphere you want to set on your project is to help people to feel good about the work they're doing, to see the work you're putting on their plate as a noble mission, as a possible cause. And the moment that happens, everything else, talking about tools, talking about compressing, or all the risks that you may need to manage, all the quality issues that may arise in the process of scheduling, in the process of compressing, all of that become easily managed. The third question: how do you go about determining the budget increase, and what tools would you use? With the Menti code I provided, I would switch over to that screen again. Okay, I see Scoro. Yeah, I don't know about that. Someone tell me about Scoro. Someone, yeah, are you speaking? Someone said, after seeking expert judgment, my go-to tool is bottom-up estimation to ensure accuracy from the granular level. Awesome. I like bottom-up estimation. Many times it's expensive and very costly. It takes a time of its own to arrive at. In fact, I find some of my resources being too obsessed with the idea of bottom-up estimation just because they want all the accuracy, and sometimes the dynamics of the project does not afford you all of that time to go to such a granular level before you can provide estimation. And that's why we have different degrees of accuracy of estimates, whereby if I have been able to do a bottom-up estimation, I can go to the client and say that this is an accurate estimate that probably has an error margin of minus 5% to plus 5%. But if I know that I do not have that kind of luxury of being able to provide an accurate estimate, someone mentioned using contingency reserves, and then you can approach your client and say, well, given the pace of the project and what we're dealing with, we can provide you a rough order of magnitude of estimates where the error margin is as wide as minus 50% to plus 50%. You can probably box all of that into your contingency reserve as a fallback if there is a need to go back. Someone said identifying the increase in resources, human and material, required for project execution. Of course, when you start to think about budget increase, you're also considering one of the units of cost that you would find on your project, depending on what industry you're in anyway, would be the cost of additional labor. in a service industry like IT, where I belong, like 90% of project budgets will be tied to labor. And so if you're talking about justifying increase in cost like this, it's going to be mostly associated with additional labor. Someone said, I'm not sure if this answers this question. Increase in scope can affect budget negatively and will require a PM to ask for more budget. Additional resources required to achieve timeline can affect budget and will require a PM to ask for more budget. Okay, so still trying to justify why we need budget there. Well, in this case, the client has not specifically asked for addition of scope. The client has only insisted that irrespective of the challenges that COVID-19 situation might have added to the project, they still want the project delivered as planned. But identifying that the COVID-19 situation might have added some strain on the project, they are willing to review whatever request for additional funds you have. And so, yeah, so to drive this home, I would just say that when you're looking at determining budget increase, of course, the first thing to think about, okay, wait, let's backtrack a little. Now, I have a project that I can deliver at $1 million. In the business case that brought about this project, the entire ROI on this project when successfully delivered is maybe 2 million. Now we are running into a situation that would make us to spend as much as $3 million on this project. Whether we are able to determine the extra fund we need or not, should we still go ahead with this project? So think about that. So I'm just drawing us back to where we should always start from. So the project management kind of thinking is, oh, the customer has requested this, then I'm jumping on it to make it happen for them. But the role of a project manager is increasing, is expanding by the day. And we keep saying this in the project management industry, that the role of project manager is becoming more and more robust, that you're not just about delivering the scope of your project on time and on budget anymore. You're now thinking of value, you're thinking of benefit realization. And so sometimes part of the job you're doing is to protect your client from your clients, because just saying I have more money to spend on this project, you have to deliver on time, doesn't necessarily mean that's the best course of action. Because if you have used a grenade or a dynamite to kill a fly, the value is defeated at the end of the day. So the first question to ask is, what impact will adding budget, adding fund to this project have on the overall benefit or value that is expected from this project? Do some more critical thinking and come up with either a yes to continue the project or a no, we are dropping the project. If it's a yes to continue the project, then we can start to do the typical project management job of how do we determine the extra budget? How do we justify that to the client? So in this case, we probably want to go back to our Gantt chart or whatever project planning tool that we're using to identify those critical tasks where we can drive up, where we can compress schedule and see what cost impact those schedule compression can have on the project. There's a lot more we can talk about this that time will not permit us to. I'm just going to jump back to this slide and go for the last question. But I can assure you that these links are not links that take you to some 50-page kind of document, or they are very concise articles or tools that you would find out there. If you're a Project Management Institute member, you would find many of them on projectmanagement.com. And they are all free. There's none of them that's going to require that you pay. So go ahead and use the link to get more information than you can get within this short presentation. Of course, talking about adding budget, there's a lot of communication that has to happen. There's a lot of cross-functional collaboration you need to do to be able to determine the actual necessity of this additional budget, and of course, budget estimation tools that you may need to use. And the last question, how do you then communicate your new budget to the client in the most convincing way, and what tools are your best bet? So I'm going to go back to Menti, and I would like to see what you guys have there. Okay. Waiting. Waiting. How do you communicate your new budget to the client in the most convincing? Okay. Formal documentation and charts, okay? Formal documentation and charts. Okay. That will depend on the preferred communication channel by the client as earlier established, updated during the stakeholder analysis assessment. Be open, present facts, share to 3 options, educate, and facilitate decision making. More? Well, so I'm just going to jump in there. So communication comes down to whatever communication channel or communication tools you might have established on your project. For a conversation around budgeting, it might require more than the day-to-day communication on the project. You might need to do some escalation to maybe the steering committee. You might need to prepare some kind of presentation. You might need to, you will definitely need to like schedule meetings to review stuff. But some of the things you will need to consider would be what level of technical information will be useful to support the request for additional funding, and what who are your audience and how much can they understand some of the things that you have to communicate. So you would have to tailor your communication to the audience that you're going to be making your pitch to, and that can require that you use different kind of tools. So for the core project team at the project level, you might be able to go as far as using reviewing your project planning tool, maybe your Gantt, or maybe the cost view of your project planning software and all of that. But by the time you're getting outside of the core project team, talking to executive at steering committee level, they are probably more interested in the conversation around cost benefit analysis first. They want to know if putting more money on this does not override whatever value that is expected from it. And once they establish that, the next question they want to ask is, would be, is this going to be a final thing, or are we going to have to do this over and over again? So you want to provide some assurances that you have done a diligent job of being able to estimate what is required. And then you can go into the details of what is expected in addition to the existing fund. And you also want to show, like someone said, make sure you have like 2-3 options, because if, for instance, if a team member comes to meet me and says, I need more money, and that's the only option they have, my basic instinct is that you haven't been creative enough at solving the problem. So go back and do some more thinking and come back with a non-cost way of solving this problem. And so at the end of the day, it's always a good idea to provide 2 or 3 options. Sometimes one of the options can be do nothing. One of the options can be do something minimal, and then the third one would be do something. You can present the pros and cons of these various options to let the customer know what it is that they are bargaining as they review some of these options. So I like that comment. Present the basis of estimates using the appropriate communication plan for stakeholders. Someone mentioned use Excel to create your new budget and PowerPoint presentation to share with your stakeholders. Yeah, first of all, explain the value of the new budget and the disadvantage of not adopting the new budget. Yeah, you can keep it coming. I definitely would have access to those after now. So I'm going to just go back to the slide and wrap it up. I'm sure Aditon will be itching to kick me off already, but I always do that to her. So yeah, communication will be very, very important. If you have a team that is technical enough to understand your budgeting tools, you can definitely use that. Like someone suggested, Excel might be a very simple tool to actually show what differentials you have in your budget. And of course, I am a pro collaboration. Where there is enough adequate collaboration, you would have to speak less grammar to actually get anything from your client. When you see yourself having to do too many justification for any change that you have on your project, it's a pointer to how to the level of collaboration you might have on the project. So pay attention to collaboration at any stage of a project. That usually will save you from a very difficult change process. Closing off, we said that selecting tools and techniques for project management success should always receive some critical team thinking. It always starts with thinking. You're not a robot. You're not artificial intelligence that is based on what previous data existed. You need to think about the peculiarity of the situation or the context that you are dealing with. And based on that, you can go ahead and start to think about what options are there. There are no right, there are no wrong answers. The idea is to brainstorm and ideate and bring together a lot of ideas that you can then begin to analyze against all the parameters of constraint that you may have. And of course, think context, think agile, think lean. It's very important that you keep the project as profitable and value driven as it was when it's still on paper. And of course, if a tool delivers magic, be generous enough and kind enough to share with your PMO. Other PMs in your organization can learn from that. And of course, share with the PM practice community. You can come to H.O.P.S and say, yay, I found Sdlc. I think it's going to be useful for other PMs. And you would have been a good neighbor. Sorry, I did not pause to take a lot of questions and answers, but I hope Aditon would let that happen now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Taiwo, for sharing your knowledge. That was really packed, and for sharing all those resources you shared. What do you guys think about charging Taiwo for the extra time?
Just send it to my accountant, okay?
So we really won't take. Did somebody say something?
You will pay $5,000.
Okay, $5,000 per minute.
Come on, don't be cheap, man. That's too. My accountants don't take invoices at that.
Okay. So we won't take questions just now, just because we are really beyond the allotted time, and we would really like people to get back to their days, especially if they have plans. So I hope you guys have had an amazing time. Thank you to all our incredible speakers for sharing their knowledge and their time with us. Can we give them a round of applause again? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And a very big thank you to every single one of you in attendance. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. And we hope it was really good value for you. So you can reach out to our speakers on LinkedIn if you still have questions and you can wait at the end of the session. We shared the LinkedIn link for all the speakers and for helping other people succeed, the page and the group, so that you can like stay up to date on all our other initiatives. And we can still like on the group, we will be able to take more questions with regards to this session today. And the great part is all the speakers today are mentors with H.O.P.S, so we can connect together on that group. We are now, and just to also say that this session was recorded and we are going to share that recording and we'll also put it up on YouTube. So, because I've gotten some questions about sharing the slides and all of that, so you can go there to like watch and like recap on some of those very important points. So thank you again. I will now hand it over to Bola to officially close the session so that anyone that wants to leave can leave, and then we can stay back to answer questions for those of us that want to do that. Thank you again. Bola?
Officially closed.
Okay, so Bola says officially closed. Thank you. So right now, I think we can take questions from anybody that has questions.